Hey, YouTube, you need to speak to your customers. If you think about, you know, MailChimp, they've been in the email marketing business from probably 15 years at this point. So across 19 years, the one thing that I'm sure they did was collecting data. And collecting data is super important because they have been speaking with their customers. They've been asking these customers about what are the features that they're more interested about and how much they're willing to pay for it. They're spending. Because if you land on the pricing page for MailChimp and you just get hit with a $2.99 a month 15 years ago, you'd be like, oh my God, like I'm never gonna be able to afford that. First thing they did is they surveyed their user and they asked them what are the features that they want, what are the features that they want the most, and they've asked them questions about pricing, right? Usually product managers coupled with a lot of other people in companies are very good at doing these kind of workshops where they are going to ask, if we have a free tier, what's going to be our next tier and how much is it going to cost? How much are people willing to spend in dollar amount to actually have a little bit more than a free tier, to have like less limits on their accounts functionalities and limits and all that, in terms of email send, for example, for MailChimp? How much is too much, and what's the right formula for allowing them to choose between a $14.99, $9.99, zero, or the crazy $2.99 a month plan? 70% of the users end up in these three tiers, and then the rest probably up here with the enterprise deal and all those people who like directly talk to sales, dealing with that. Another thing that people will definitely think about when doing business and ending up on a pricing page is, what would be a good bargain? If I had a thousand contacts, maybe MailChimp free tier would work for me. But what if I needed a little bit more? What if I needed, for example, custom branding and A/B testing? And what if I wanted support? Well, that's why they've created this separation between this free tier, which honestly it's very generous, and this essentials tier, which is basically very useful for people who have small businesses and just need that support and removing the branding from the MailChimp brand and all that. So all this information basically didn't come out of the sky. They didn't just wake up a morning at the MailChimp HQ, which is probably somewhere in California, I don't know, and just decided, hey, you know what, we're gonna like separate these features this way. So that's definitely something to consider, is how are you going to talk to your users, and what are the features that they clearly want, what are the features that they're willing to pay for, and how much are they going to pay, and how much is too much, right? So these are kind of the steps that you need to consider when approaching a pricing strategy for pricing homepage. And in terms of design, I think you should think about, the most important things are, well, first of all, a name for the plan that you're going to subscribe for. And usually the name comes from, again, speaking with your customers and doing some market research and creating personas for each of these tiers. So for example, a free tier, it's probably someone who just got started, doesn't have a lot of money, or just wants to test the product without putting a credit card number down. A lot of people that have very small communities, very small businesses, will probably end up in this tier here, because you can have up to 2,000 contacts. And especially if you're doing something where you don't charge people, but you want to send them emails and you want to try to like gather more and more people under your audience, then this is probably the right plan for you. So the information they gathered to create this plan was through communication. And after creating the name free, which is great, and giving it a price of $0, and then listing kind of like the features that people would need to begin to get started, they created this tier. And now you'll be asking, okay, so how do I ask my customers how much they're willing to spend? Usually that's probably the hardest thing that people don't really know how to do. Maybe you will have 10 discussions in your first, couple of months. Well, based on how much we use your product and, other competitors, I think I am willing to spend up to $50 a month or whatever, depending on whatever you're trying to sell. Other people will be telling you, well, I don't really use this tool that much, but if you had this feature, then I would definitely give it $10, $25 a month. So from conversating and gathering information, you can definitely figure out what features to put in what tier, and more importantly, it's how to price them. And that information will not come to you, overnight. Another thing you can do, and that's really important, it's keeping an eye on your competition. There's a lot of competitors out there for ideas that are very similar to yours, or maybe they're exactly the same idea as yours but different execution. And what you want to find out is, for example, let's take an example here. Okay, MailChimp. Let's do SendGrid, right? SendGrid is a competitor to MailChimp, and they have a pricing. And guess what? They use very similar terminology. They have a free tier, they have an essentials, they have a pro, and they have a premier, which is basically enterprise. Now, if you go and compare and you see free, essential, something rings a bell, right? Free and essential. That's because everybody is literally looking at everybody else's pricing page. It's not a secret. Now, if you were to look at exactly the same product, so for example, here it was just email API. A lot of people just want to do marketing, compare apples to apples. So now you see there's still a free tier, there's a basic tier, then there's an advanced tier. And then they still have all these features, right? And more advanced features here, and more simplistic features here for the free tier. And guess what? You'll go and find out that it's pretty much the same with MailChimp. They'll have some basic features, some more advanced, and then some super advanced features the more you spend, which is pretty much, you will say, hey, I didn't need a video to tell me that. Well, okay, fair enough. But what I'm trying to say is that everybody's looking at everybody else's plan. So if you've done your homework and you know who the competitors to your product or your service are, you can go and look at their pricing page and figure out how to get started, which I think it's great, and it's not copying, it's just exploring and getting yourself acquainted with pricing tiers and features and doing a little bit of competitor strategy analysis, right? So that's actually good for you. The next thing we're going to talk about is how you're going to list your options. As you can see here, they've decided to do green check marks for features that you're going to get, and then red check marks or red ticks for things that you will not be getting at this tier, or rather at this pricing. On the other hand, MailChimp, they decided to do just green ticks, and that's it. They don't have any, you won't be getting that. So they basically keep it positive. And the important word here is that they say everything you get with free, everything in free plus, everything in essential plus, everything in standard plus. So basically they build up the features by using this plus, they aggregate these features one by one, which I think it's kind of annoying, because that means that you have to read first free, then you have to read essentials, then you have to read standard, and then you finally have to read premium, and then finally you get a grasp of what's everything you'll be getting. Now you're going to be saying, hey, why did they put advanced segmentation in a premium tier? Why did they put custom templates in standard and not essential? Well, again, that is because they've spoken with their customers. And again, comparing it to SendGrid instead, where they decided to just put, what do you get and what you don't get with green and red. That's definitely another nice design choice that you can do. Now let's keep scrolling a little bit. What do you have here? What does compare our plans to? It's probably going to take you to a much deeper, there you go, much deeper table with tons of information. A lot of people will get confused about this information, and that's why it's really important to have these links to what the features are, so that if you click here, it's going to take me to an explanation of what segmentation is. Instead, And I think that SendGrid did it better so that you don't have to bounce out to another page. They will have little popovers that will explain to you exactly what each feature is. And that's a great way to like have people, stay on the page, play around, move these things left and right, and then say, okay, I've got it. I definitely need this plan right here. Right, I'm familiar with the functionalities that I will be getting. I don't have to like open new tabs of my browser and read articles about it. So if I were to choose, right, between MailChimp and SendGrid, I think SendGrid has a cleaner approach. Sure, you might feel like there's a lot of information here, but at least it will save you from like clicking and then ending up on like some kind of feature page, FAQ page, and having to read all of what's being offered. But if I have to be devil's advocate here for a second, you could also argue that having a separate page, for the feature, not only it's going to be good for SEO purposes and, people who are very curious about will love the fact that you've added a ton more information, more imagery to explain the feature, and animations, all that kind of stuff, and maybe call to actions that will take you even further down. Another thing that MailChimp has gotten right is they have testimonials on their features page. And that's definitely, playing devil's advocate here, it's definitely valid. I imagine now if they had done both a popover and a click so you could learn more. Now that would have probably been the ultimate pricing page for an email vendor, right? Like marketing or of any sort. If you're selling internationally, let's talk about that. How are you going to choose and show your prices? Are you going to have a drop down that let people choose their currency, or are you going to use the IP of the person browsing the website to kind of like determine which geolocation, which country they're from, and show prices in that currency? Well, I think the best way to do is the way that MailChimp did it, and it's basically you have a drop down, people can definitely select what currency they're after, and they can basically see how much it costs in their own currency, which is the smartest way, in my opinion, to do this, because not only allows you to support all the currencies at once that you want to support, but it also prevents you from making mistakes when people are using VPNs and weird IP addresses, which might be kind of like misunderstood. Another thing you should consider is, as you can see from this example right here, and let me select dollars again, they don't really use full numbers. Like, what's the difference between $9.99 and $10? It's literally 1 cent, right? But for some reason, psychology says that if you avoid round numbers, you can tap into consumer psychology. You will convert more people who will think, hey, I'm only spending $9.99 instead of 10. Wow, that's a bargain, right? Another thing that you can notice from this pricing page is that they have highlighted a plan that they believe is the one that's the most right for you. And that's right, I said the most right for you. In the same way, SendGrid used this little thing called popular here, where they're like, hey, you know what? We think this is going to be the plan that you're going to need. And that's just a little design element that makes your eye is basically catching that popular or that highlight a little bit better, and then you probably start reading from here because of this graphic element. Now, a lot of pricing strategists will probably say, everybody's doing this and you didn't really tell me anything new here. The point is that I've seen a lot of people on Indie Hackers, a lot of people forget to do that. So it's probably one of those things that are easy to forget, and that's why I wanted to highlight it today. Another thing that's really cool and really gives me confidence in the product is when I can see how the product will scale with volume. And that's super important, because if I start with 15,000 contacts, for example, here, and in a year I'll go to 120,000 contacts, I can see how my pricing will evolve directly from here, playing with these sliders. So another super important thing is, if you have some kind of service that might end up costing volume, right? If that makes sense. So things where people start small and then end up big, that's probably something you want to add to your landing page. Sliding scale. Another cool thing that you should look at, and there's probably another company that does it, and this was Front App. They have this huge button here that allows you to choose between paying yearly, which, as they highlight, you will save money by paying yearly, or paying monthly will cost you more, but you don't have to basically pay for the whole year up front. This pay yearly, pay monthly is definitely a game changer for people who are trying to save as much money as they can because they're probably on a tight budget and they probably just want to save every cent they can. So you don't want to overwhelm users either. Just like MailChimp showed it, you want to have maybe a couple of bullet points that explain what the features that you're going to offer are. But if people are really willing to jump in deep dive into the features that you're offering, that's why you can give them this call to action here where they can click and it opens up a table with literally every single feature, what plans gets it, and if there's any limitation, of each plan, basically it will be said, right? It'll be exposed by this table. But the point is that you want to try and keep the least amount of information with the highest amount of, it's almost like power, right? Like what are the features that will empower your user on each plan? So instead of doing this straight out of the box, consider doing this. Okay, let's move on to maybe another company, which I find extremely confusing when it comes to pricing. Intercom. So the thing I love about Intercom is the tool that they offer. It's an amazing tool. It's really good engineering, and it's very useful to have Intercom on your website. But when it comes to pricing, wow, what is going on, right? And you might be thinking, okay, well, they have the kind of the call out, they have the 3 plans, the different names. Each one of these, matches as a persona. This is maybe the small startup. This is probably the more bigger business, and this is kind of enterprisey, right? And then you have all the features here, and the pricing is clearly defined, and there's links to understanding what each of the features that you're getting are. But then you have add-ons, and add-ons is adding a lot of cognitive information, right? There's a lot of cognitive overload here because I have to not only consider that I might want to have the $153 a month, but then look, this pricing is just, you get the all-in-one, or maybe you want the conversational marketing, or maybe you want the engagement, or maybe the support. And on top of that, you can get all these add-ons. And oh my goodness, why is there so much going on? Why is it so complicated? Another important thing that a lot of companies do nowadays that you might want to do is you want to remove friction by adding what we call the social proof, this kind of stuff where you have a face, a real person, a real name, a real job title, a familiar company brand that you might have heard of, and a big quote. And that is extremely powerful because people, when they scroll their pricing page, they don't stop. They want to see everything because money, it's really where it's at. Companies are not just going to give you the credit card details for fun. They want to make sure that what they're buying is trustworthy, and social proof is definitely the way that you can do that. See, for example, quotes here, going back to Front App, you can see how people are saying, yeah, we all use Front, it's so cool. Doing that kind of stuff, it's super cool because it allows you to also have a section that's called the FAQ. So, FAQ, what are they used for? Well, it's very simple. A lot of people might have questions at this point during the pricing page, and they'd be like, well, do I have to have minimums? Is this okay for my whole team? Is this just, gonna work? And how easy is it to get a refund? Can I get some special contract? Is this HIPAA compliant? If you're in the medical field, can I easily upgrade or downgrade? And all of these questions can definitely be answered by adding FAQ. And super cool if you also do that, where you have a contact us and you have a little chat bubble that you can always reach out to, try to have a live chat with someone like a customer service agent. Another super important thing is to add the money back guarantee that I've not seen a lot of people do today, but it's really cool. Here what they do is, you try for free. That kind of like reduces your concerns, but it's not strong enough as money back guarantee. No question asked, refunds, that kind of stuff. That is probably the strongest copy that you can use to get people to trust your brand, that hey, if this doesn't work for you, we'll give you your money back. A lot of people also have been asking me, hey, can I A/B test my prices on my pricing page? Well, the short answer is don't bother. The amount of traffic that you will need on your pricing page to A/B test and see a significant improvement it's humongous, right? You probably don't want to do that, especially if you're watching this video. You're probably an indie maker, you're an indie hacker, you're basically not like a big timer yet, right? But what you can do instead is you can decide to offer a certain pricing for 6 months, and then six months later you change it and you see how your pricing is doing. That's probably the only and best way for you to be able to judge whether you can charge more for your product. And ideally, every year, once a year, you go in and you review your pricing, because as you improve the product, you pinpoint the marketing lingo, and you add on new features, you definitely spend more money and time. Therefore, that means that you can charge higher amounts. And however, do not forget that there's always going to be some kind of, there's a roof between which, a roof and a basement. When you start in the basement, you can charge a little amount of money, and then you can grow it up to the roof, after which people will stop wanting to buy it because they think it's too much. Keeping it simple, easy to read, highlights, call to actions, switches, no sliders, features, comparable table features, quotes, FAQs, and social proof. So I hope this information has been useful. I've been definitely speaking for a long while, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video, because if you did, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe to my channel. If you didn't enjoy, well, leave me a comment, let me know why, and I will do better next time. So with that being said, have a good rest of your day or evening, and I'll see you at the next video.